25, I would say about a third to a half is a city-county partnership, mostly through the city first, right? And often, so I look at Deming as an example, the city manager, and Demi went and approached the county and said, we don't have all the resources for this. This is a benefit to both the city and the county. Can we engage? Can we engage this together? In grants, similar to what the Main Street Board did here, they approached the county about, will you support it for this scope of work? In grants, the Main Street Board there had their contract and their agreement with the city. And then they went and approached the county around an additional set of services. And so the county, for grants, for many years, it's been a 50-50. So they had 35 grand from the city and 35 grand from the county. And the actual value is based on the size of the community. Over 5,000 residents, the organization is expected to have a $60,000 operating budget. Between 5,000 and 15,000, it's expected that the local government partner provides 35,000. That number changed. Between 15 and 50 is 40,000, right? Which means that board needs to raise the other $20,000 at least for their operations. And this is strictly operations, not project. For a community of over 50,000, the local government partner is expected to provide $60,000 towards a minimum $100,000 operating budget for the organization. And I think in each community, depending on where they are in their current economic conditions, I think it's always negotiated, right? So we've had, we can, just going back in my history, the last 5 years with Main Street, we've had county partners who stepped up and filled the gap when the city was having issues and vice versa, right? So I think that's a good opportunity for both the city and the county to come together and say, this is important to this community, period, and it resides in both jurisdictions. How do we work this out?
Especially, I think, when, in this case, we need to show the county benefiting from the investment.
The real important piece, what happens next, as Alamogordo Main Street has completed their emerging community benchmarks, because the city was an applicant, the state will present an MOU, it's a biannual MOU, it's good for 2 years, it's asking that for you to reaffirm not only your philosophical commitment, but your financial. And then each year is how you execute your scope of services contract. That's a procurement piece with the city, with the county, and in Zuni with the tribal government. And so the biannual MOU spells out what the state provides by way of services and support, what's expected of the local Main Street program, i.e. that organization, that board, and then what the commitments are on the city. Right? We have, especially under duress of tough economic times, have hit the pause button once in a while on those commitments to allow a community to help recover and allocate resources as they need to. That's a case-by-case decision that the state, and mostly Daniel and his boss with the Secretary of the Economic Development Department. So, I hope that answered the question, but I think it's important in every community to get that support. The other piece of why a nonprofit is required. The state has partners like PNM. There's another group called the New Mexico Resiliency Alliance, which provides small seed grants for projects just for Main Street programs. And so Alamogordo Main Street also received a $3,000 organizational match grant to support their fundraising effort in May. So they had a 1 day of giving fundraising event for their operations here. The grant was, if you raise at least $3,000, you get another $3,000 just to support your operations, right? And I think they raised 6 that day. They got another 3, so it was almost, they raised 2/3 of that total amount in 1 day, and then the other part was a grant. You need that nonprofit partner to help carry and bring in the community stakeholders in the space, and you need the local government partners to really work, help with the master plans, the MRA plans, the coordination, and to be the fiscal agent for any state funding resources.
vision for the downtown, you know, and how you want to work with them. And I know Cam's reached out to you guys since he just started, so we're excited that, has an executive director now, and that's when you really start seeing a lot of that work carry forward, because there's somebody that's there to drive it.
I'm just curious about something. We've reached the 18-month
Mhm.
evaluation point, I guess. And just for clarification for us, because we're about to have a public meeting with regard to some of the events that have occurred downtown. I'm sure Cam has probably filled you in on what our downtown restaurants have been able to accomplish. During your evaluation process, what do you look at? So we have a better idea of what is necessary for our community to be doing so that you think positively
Right,
about our
and
enthusiasm.
So we do, part of our assessment when we come down, and it's a little different this year because we're doing a self-assessment in terms of the progress where everybody's at, because the way things are changing with National Main Street, we're kind of refocusing on these transformation strategies. We want to help the communities really help develop them, so they have all the tools they need to, from us, to make it happen. But we do create the assessment report that we will send back.
Mhm.
So, and we can make sure it'll be a PDF document, so we can make sure you guys get it as well in terms of recommendations going forward in the next year, what we've seen in terms of progress, those type of things. So that can, one, help develop the document, and maybe we want to talk about.
So there were three things, and we talked about this yesterday in Roswell, that really focused the assessment on. Granted, Alamogordo Main Street is a new community, and Roswell has been around for 20-something years, right? So where they are in their history, the assessment changes a little bit. But the three areas are, first of all, compliance. There's some required compliance pieces. The state cannot provide services unless the nonprofit revitalization partner, i.e. Alamogordo Main Street, is legally compliant, which means with the IRS, Attorney General's office, and the Secretary of State. Second, the state requires a number of policies for them to adopt and abide by. Whistleblower protection policy, record protection and destruction policy, a fiscal management policy. They also have to submit annual work plans to the state and say, this is what we're working on in the coming year. So all of those are a list of compliance pieces. The second one is around their resources and partnerships. So that's the second assessment element. Do they have the resources they need to meet the benchmarks for accredited program, i.e. their funding from the local government partner, i.e. the additional funding to support their minimum operational budget, and a full-time director. You cannot be an accredited program without a full-time executive director. So there's the partnerships and resources. The third one is achievement in your revitalization projects. Are they moving design projects? Are they moving economic development projects? Are they moving promotions projects to the end goal of two key economic development priorities for the downtown district? So those are the three areas. Because we're in this transition right now with the National Main Street Center around some of the compliance pieces, the assessment now is about, when we came in February for the assessment, which was previously was on a fiscal year cycle, now it's moved to a calendar year cycle, which we're back in the year. The last thing they needed to matriculate in February was the hiring of the director. So now they're either gonna move into an affiliate status or accredited status, and that's where we are right now. If they were further along in their pathway to maturity, like a Roswell or Los Alamos or downtown Albuquerque, we would have much different conversations about which projects do you have lined up and are moving in this country.
Then you will come out with a work plan.
Since we're in the infant stages, that's what I understand, basically the appearance of downtown is what we're concentrating on, which will affect the economics at some point. But,
Sure, and so it's not just the appearance, and, because, we do we want a good walkable space, but part of that's just the business recruitment, and that's where like some of the economic vitality point comes in, at least that works. So, that could be real estate development, rehabbing old buildings, working with finding people that buyers or people that are willing to invest, finding money for those projects as well, if they're a publicly owned building. You know, so it is working on that as well as the business recruitment and really promoting the district. So it is a comprehensive approach to it beyond just, you know, just aesthetics, right? So it is much more comprehensive. But it is still in the early stages, so it does take time to get to that point. And really it's about building the capacity of the program itself, because, you know, having a full-time director now will help drive some of that. And you're still working with other stakeholders to put together task groups to make some of these projects happen. But so the first part is, yes, developing the plan, the work plan as we go forward with the next year. What are their overarching transformation strategies, their vision for the downtown, and then developing projects to make that happen. So,
And the appearance is not in and of itself the end game.
yeah.
No,
It's
I
a
understand.
pathway to the
Right.
economic growth
That's
in
kind of where we're at.
Vital.
Well, I was saying,
Yes.
You have to get that done before you can move on.
Yes.
I mean, some of it you can do simultaneously, but a lot of it, the appearance is very important before
Exactly.
you can attract.
And that's where the public infrastructure
Economic,
comes in,
economic,
because,
economic from there.
yeah, that's where you get the private sector reinvestment when you invest in the infrastructure itself. And I'm sure some of that will come out, we do an MRA plan, or some of that, because, you know, some of the doable projects from the public infrastructure side will come out.
MRA.
Yeah, the metropolitan redevelopment area.
And so
It
this,
is a tool.
it has taken over a little bit of sort of the downtown master plan, which is what the state used to fund for Main Street District, was the downtown master plan. So the metropolitan redevelopment area plan is not only the plan with community feedback, but also the financing tools. And so it looks at what are your opportunities with tax increment financing, or tax increment development district, or the MRA financing tools to help pay for the infrastructure side. Main Street actually doesn't call their, New Mexico Main Street, their funding capital outlay anymore, it's called the New Mexico Main Street Public Infrastructure Fund. And so that is, that part of the appearance, the infrastructure piece, while the local revitalization partner is working on the business development. Or do we want a gallery, or do we want a performance space in that big building that, where the Play Inter might have been, right? And so those are the goals that the revitalization partner should be working on, while the city and the state are working on the infrastructure pieces.
Gentlemen, first, thank you for coming down here. I've got to head back to work here in about 5 minutes, so I wanted to clarify one thing and ask a question. One, you believe it's the intent and the direction of our mainstream program right now that they're headed toward the accredited version, right? They're not going to mess around with an affiliate or anything like that. That's your understanding, right?
Sure.
That's correct.
And that offers our Main Street program the best resources and the best possible outcome for capital outlay and things like that.
Right.
Okay. So I want to make sure that we're supporting a program that's heading toward the affiliate direction. Your question a few minutes ago was, you know, what from the city would we like to see out of our Main Street program?
Sure.
And we as a group, as a commission, I think it's important to get a little bit of advice and maybe understand. One of the reasons I believe in the Main Street program is because it puts a huge emphasis on community buy-in, developing community members, businessmen, all the support that's there in the community, developing the 501, the nonprofit status, and uses the city or the bigger money as a partner to validate it and to help sustain it over time. One of the things, I guess my question is, how often do you really see the city come in and tell Main Street what they want? It should be the other way around. Main Street, if they need anything from the city, the city's there to support,
Right.
not really to give direction. Because if the city starts stepping in and starts telling them, you had made a comment that I completely agree with. As things have expanded in Main Street, you've seen, instead of overlapping programs, you started to ask them to start trying to get together and figure out if you want to see restaurants or whatever downtown,
Right.
or if you wanted to see more arts and entertainment.
Mhm.
And I think that's a great way. The city can help with the infrastructure of that.
Right.
But when the city starts stepping in and starts trying to dictate what commercial businesses are being put down there, we're starting to step into a territory that we don't want to be stepping into. Our business in the city is there to help support, not really to give direction to do those things.
And I think, and I agree, and I think maybe my intent was more to, in terms of that if there are public infrastructure projects that need to happen, that they're working with you and they know about them, because they do wanna tailor their work around so that it can benefit the investment the city makes, right? So I agree, it should, it is a bottom-up program, you know, in terms of the ideas, the direction is coming from the community itself, but in conjunction with the city, because the city is a huge partner in providing resources and other things, but sure, that's why there is that separation between, you know, a private and public. So we do encourage it, and I'm glad you clarified that, Lisa.
And I think it's.
That's what you guys
hugely
mostly
important.
see, right?
Exactly.
It's good to maintain a healthy boundary there around the roads, right? I mean, it wouldn't be unheard of for local government to say, we want this done because we're providing the resources for your operations, right? But I think that it doesn't work that way. And we have gone into communities and worked with the local government saying, that isn't how it's supposed to work and that isn't how it can work, but the state can't partner on the process, right? And so it's good to have good, healthy engagement and good, healthy boundaries in this space, right? And I certainly appreciate
Yes.
your comments on that one, because that's where it needs to be.
Yeah, good, thank you, that's it. Again, thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Comrades, I'm sorry I have to go back to work. There's some golf to be played.
Okay.
Not by me.
You got a rough life, dude.
Not by me.
I suffer, you know.
Other questions? Anyone?
Do the two get business cards?
Yes. Yes, I remember. Oh, yes, we have.
When the commission's done, I have a couple of quick ones.
Okay, all right. I think I would like to maybe close with not only what has happened, but what's next. So we already talked about the projects and the funding resources and where it is. I wanna say, I think Alamogordo Main Street was the first community that came in under a state's new coaching process that intensive 18 months. We offered it to the 4 communities that came in just before Alamogordo, and we see a world of difference between starting that process at the very beginning versus trying to backfill that. The board has come together, and we understand sort of the challenges they've had, not just organizationally, but with the public and launching some of these projects in the district as well. Those aren't unheard of either in any of our communities every year, right? But I think they have moved at a level of speed that we haven't seen in, I think since I've joined the program, probably 8 new communities that came into this state. We are extremely excited about what that board got done in 18 months, where they want to go next. So to answer your question about priorities, I think the board is looking at not only the physical appearance of the district and the businesses, the individual properties, but getting those vacant properties filled, right? So how do we start working with property owners and identifying what's an appropriate business to move into downtown and start helping to recruit that process?
Can I ask you, is Taos one of those communities?
Taos was a Main Street community.
But it was one of the ones you're referring to that.
Yeah,
Kind of
yes.
an example, yeah.
That didn't really make it, they never made it out of startup mode.
You didn't.
They didn't. So they're no longer a Main Street, they're kind of a deactivated community at this point, because it just, like he said, there wasn't that intensive training and some, you know, so it was, and directed training. So they took a long time to even get off the start point and eventually just kind of.
And I think
deactivated.
New Mexico Main Street is structured very differently from so many other streets by way of the services it provides. The funding, we hope, is always there by way of the capital outlay fees, but the services it provides are pretty unique in Colorado. In Texas, most of the Main Street programs exist in a city government. It's one of the few states where the state provides money to the city government, then they run a Main Street program out of their community development office, right? Colorado, they wish they could provide the resources to communities that the state does. Iowa is patterned similarly, but they don't have as big a team. They don't have that urban planner and an architect and the cultural resources man to come in and help the community with a specific project. So we're really thrilled with Alamogordo progress to this step, and I think the next piece is that MRA planning process, which includes the community feedback, which guides what happens next. I think filling those empty businesses is a big priority.
Part of the progress, and I think part of the accolades should be given to the Downtown Merchants Association here. And I wonder how they fit into this whole scheme.
So I agree. They do deserve a lot of recognition. We've had board members from the DMA also on the Main Street Board. So I think there was 3 of them at the beginning. There's 2 of them, I believe, right now. The Downtown Merchants Association, in each community you have either a chamber and an EDC and a Main Street program and maybe a Downtown Merchants Association, all kind of working in different pieces. Here, the Downtown Merchants Association partnered with Main Street area around the application process and around the organizational development. This is what we want to do, right? The association, I think by mutual agreement, partly as a result of our recommendations, our promotions program associate, was to distinguish the association's events from the Main Street events, right? So that they build some synergy and collaboration in general for the district without necessarily stepping on each other's toes in the space. So I think the DMA deserves a lot of credit, especially with their downtown events, and they have been engaged with the Main Street development as well. So we're excited.
And you think they've established that separation?
I don't know. And that's one of the things we'll find. I think we're aware of sort of the PR issues around the downtown events and the street closures and what that might be. I just don't know that I haven't been in the community enough to say, I know this versus this, right? So we're gonna meet with the board this afternoon, and we're gonna try and sort some of those pieces out as well.
The reason I keep sniffing around that particular issue is we're going to become pretty involved in that because of some ordinance changes that we're going to be required to look at. And we certainly want to support Main Street, and we certainly want to support DMA. So we need to know where the line of demarcation is.
Right.
Because I get the feeling from some conversations of late and social media that you're trying to, or Main Street is trying to separate themselves from the downtown merchants.
I don't think it's about separating themselves from, as I understand, but more about clarifying the roles that they both have in the community. Now, I would not recommend that they separate themselves from the DNA. And part of that, from an organizational development side, which part of that is my consultation work to them, which is why we're trying to understand the scenario today. Because I think we have no engagement or support or assistance we can provide to the DMA. The state can only provide that to the Main Street organization.
So if they're working together, then they can
I think
build
there's
out
a
that
benefit.
support we can provide to the Main Street.
And I think it's important for them to be working together. We want to make sure that's done.
I'd like to follow up on Commissioner Sykes, because she makes a really superb point. And as she said that on social media in particular, there's a lot of concern about the connection or lack of between the DMA and Main Street. And I've spoken to several of the DMA leadership, will say, and they've made it very clear recently that the art walks that they do with the DMA are completely separate from Main Street.
Right.
But what I'm hearing from you right now is that it's a great idea for them to work together, but not be connected, as in they are part of that board. They just try to coordinate and work together and assist each other.
Sure.
And so all I would ask you is, when you speak to the board and the other entities, that you take a hard look at that, because, as again, Commissioner Sykes just mentioned, there's a huge controversy, particularly about the street closures.
Right.
And the commission is going to have to look at that. And when the connection in the community is made between the DMA and Main Street, that becomes a very big concern for some of the more conspiracy theorist minded. You know, you can see that she agrees with that. And by the way, I'm one of the head conspiracy theorists in town. My name is Paul Sanchez, and I'm live streaming and recording, and I have a website, Facebook page that I report on city issues. So she's got it dead on, and personally, I think they should be working together.
Sure.
That is my
They
opinion.
should be supporting each other because it's gonna benefit the district.
Yeah, I have
And-
no disagreement
And I
with
think, and at least from our perspective, I mean, we support temporary street closures to really drive, for events and to drive businesses by, we would never advocate for a permanent closure, you know, but for certain events, I mean, it can be very beneficial to the district.
that. Absolutely.
But you still have to do other things to mitigate the impact on businesses. And that's where a Main Street program can help, you know, whether it's developing signs, you know, where parking is, that you can still get to these businesses. But it can be something that you're supporting, something else that the Merchants Association is putting.
I have a couple of quick follow-ups. Number one is that, again, I agree with everything you just said, but it creates a huge concern, particularly with the street closure part of it. So, I think the key there, just in my humble opinion, is finding a way to explain it clearly to the public,
Sure, yes.
which is what I want to do.
Sure.
I want to explain this to the public so that the majority of the public, you're always gonna have your naysayers, but the majority of the public gets it, okay? So that's one. Two, you mentioned street closures, okay? Street closures need to happen in that type of a thing, and again, I'm a huge supporter of that. I'm a New Yorker, and when they have Dominican Day or Puerto Rican Day in New York, they close off blocks for those type of celebrations, okay? So I get that, that's not a problem. However, there's one business in particular, dead center of that street, that is a medical assistance type facility that doesn't really benefit from the street closure, and in fact, it can on occasion impact their patients getting to that facility. So that's where that's one of the biggest, hugest concerns that come in. So can I clarify one thing that has been accused of Main Street? Is there any intent at this time, that's the key part because things can change, of permanently closing off, creating a green space, a walking area of that block? And I'm asking you guys.
Never, we wouldn't, so that's happened in two spaces that, in Albuquerque on 4th Street, just north of, between Central
And City Hall.
and City Hall. They've since opened it up in, Las
Las
Cruces,
Cruces.
and that was that was before Main Street was even around in New Mexico, so that was a city thing that was
So
trying to take.
not only do you, do you not want to do it, you don't even advocate
No,
it.
we worked with Las Cruces to actually open it back up.
See, that's beautiful, and that will answer a lot.
That's important, because you have to have that, yeah,
Las Cruces, Monday,
exactly.
And we don't want to learn a lesson that's already been
No,
learned.
we would never
But I
advocate
want
for
to
that.
also reiterate what we started earlier. If the community in general says, we want to have a downtown mall, that's a whole nother.
We're not gonna impose it.
Well, I said at this time, and I asked your position, and that's what you gave us.
Yeah, but we wouldn't advocate for it at all. We would probably urge against it, but we're not a top-down program. We're gonna tell.
You're an
people
advisor.
to do- Exactly.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
There's a little creative tension that we see in all the communities,
There always is.
usually between the Chamber of Commerce and the Main Street program, because they have overlapping jurisdictions. And they haven't clarified their roles initially or their roles with each other, right? Some of those, like Grants, has done a great job of breaking down the barriers between the Main Street program, the Chamber, and the EDC, the Economic Development Corporation. And it takes some time, right? I think some of what you're seeing here of why aren't they working together, or are they not, are developmental issues, right? They're young in their development right now. And I'm not fully understanding why that hasn't been worked out, because we have DMA board members on the Main Street board. But I think the answer is we sit down and let's figure this out.
I'm sorry. I have one comment and one question, then I'm out. I'm done with my thoughts. Comment, that mural that you guys sponsored that, is that correct?
We worked with P&M corporate sponsored that. They got a grant, but we have a working agreement with P&M, but for Main Street
But
community.
that was part of,
It's for a placemaking project, and then the board decided that they were gonna follow the resource readiness
Right.
assessment plan, say, let's put a mural
the
in.
comment is that I recently took a trip to Oregon, I had a family emergency. And I went to two towns that aren't Main Street towns, but have done Main Street stuff. One of the biggest things I saw was murals. And I gotta tell you, and I videotaped it, a whole bunch of pictures, that mural is better than anything I saw up there. It is
They're doing a nice job.
incredible.
We went and looked at it.
And from me speaking personally, God help the kid that tags that thing. But no, that was amazing, and I have huge compliments to anyone who's involved, and I've talked to the artists themselves. Now, with the fact that there are a couple of businesses on that block that have concerns about Main Street, concerns about the DMA, the art walks, etc. When this was initiated, and I was following but only sort of paying attention back in the day, does this type of program require 100% buy-in from the businesses that were on there, or how does that work? Because there are businesses that now have large concerns about this.
You'll never get 100% buy-in.
Oh, I agree.
And I think the only time when you require a high percentage of buy-in is from property owners, if they're doing sort of a business improvement district where they are assessing themselves an additional tax to put money back into the infrastructure. But you will never get 100%.
So then my question is this, and I'm kind of playing devil's advocate, remember, I'm a huge supporter of this. So I'm the business owner in the middle of the street, okay? And I don't like it, and I don't want to be part of it, and I object to it. What is your response to me in that, and that's devil's
And
advocate,
hopefully
please.
you're trying to work and you're trying to make all the accommodations you can.
Hopefully.
Hopefully, and, we would encourage that, but at the end of the day, sometimes, if somebody doesn't wanna be involved, doesn't wanna, be engaged with it, I mean, you have to keep doing your best to make sure you're as accommodating as you can, and a lot of times we found in other communities, which some of your biggest proponents end up being your biggest supporters when they see the change happening slowly, right? They'll see things happening and that project success is ultimately what gets their buy-in, and they end up being some of your biggest supporters once they see what it can really do, right? But you can't force anybody to do anything or to be involved, but you do want to be as accommodating as you can, and I think that's the best we.
But I think what you're saying though, correct me, is that singular or maybe two business owners, they're not going to stop this process.
Well, as long as there's a stakeholder group and there's that.
You see what, you see
I
what I'm
think
saying?
that's an
Question I'm asking?
oversimplification,
Yeah,
I think,
yeah.
because, first of all, you have ordinances that you have to deal with.
Obviously.
Yeah.
You want 100% community.
Obviously.
Right? I think if one business owner, and we see this in other communities, or a group of business owners says, we don't want that, or we don't even, if you pay for it, we don't want it on our building, affecting our business, right? There's not much anybody can do about that, but work with the other businesses around it, right?
So-
But a closure, I think what you're dealing with, it becomes a legal issue, not necessarily.
I'm not asking about the legal side, that's the commission has to deal with that. I'm asking about for the Main Street. So I think what you said is you will continue to work with businesses that do support, the ones that don't, they don't.
I think you have to continue to.
I don't
work
want,
with
I don't
all
wanna
of
make
them.
that a negative statement,
Yeah.
but there are some very loud, only a couple, but some very loud businesses down there that need to be worked with.
I think you wanna try and work with all the businesses. You also have to consider where the diminishing returns are, right?
Correct.
If you're gonna invest all your energy into a debate or a fight with one or two businesses, I don't know that that's
Risk benefit.
fruitful. I don't know that's fruitful. But I think it's important to listen to a business owner who might be saying, this has a huge impact on my business.
You're-
And therefore, I have strong concerns about it.
Thank you very much for those answers, and if I could speak to you afterwards, that'd be great.
Thank you so much for coming down today. This was very informative, and Cam is great. Like I said, I got to meet with him last week. I'm Maggie Palachi, acting city manager, and we had about an hour-long conversation, and I think he's gonna be fantastic, not only for the program, but for the community as well. He's really enthusiastic, so it's nice to see that.
Thank you. I would say thank you to all of you, both the cities and county, because it doesn't move with even just a stakeholder, it needs all the partners.
Perfect, thank you very much.
Did you have the card also?
Yes.
Thanks, man. Well, if you ever have any questions, then we'll make sure we get you some, so is it, do you want me to send it to Cam, or do you want us to, send it directly to
It'd be
him?
better if you sent it to the clerk, clerk's office. Really, I can even get the card,
I can get the card.
I can get the card, and
Okay.
send it to the clerk's office. And
Great.
she'll make sure that I get it.
Great.
I know you only have
Uh-huh. So 2 years in the economic.
She's in such a good shape.
2 years. Oh, no, the program, the program, oh, 30 years, 31 years.
I'll let you know.
Yeah.
I
I love all of those things.